Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the Nebraska Visitors Edition of the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Joining us today with his thoughts on Nebraska's 3-0 start will be the radio play-by-play voice of the Huskers, Kyle Crooks. Let's get it rolling, though, with my view from Section 17 and a few cuts from Biff's Monday presser. I enjoyed what I saw against Central on Saturday. I know you did, too. What a 360 in game planning from the week before. As Jake Butt said during the game, if you own a Ferrari, drive your Ferrari. It's pretty clear that with Bryce under center, this is going to be a wide-open, hard-to-defend offense. It looks nothing like what we're used to, but we haven't seen a talent like this under center at Michigan, maybe ever. This is also a very young team for the most part. So the decision by Sharon and staff to let it rip now is, I think, very smart. Let Bryce make his mistakes and learn this year, because in the process he's also going to make plays like we saw on Saturday. When he uses his legs like that, it opens up everything for an offense, even the running game. I know it was Central Michigan, but it was a lot of fun to watch. With the defense we have, I say let it rip and give defensive coordinators trying to stop Michigan a lot to game plan for. As Jake Butt said once again, even with a good game plan in place, a player like Bryce can blow it up on you. This week brings our second very tough road game of the year. Nebraska is off to a solid 3-0 start and picked up a tough road win in Cincinnati on Saturday. It is another big test and will tell us a lot about the rest of the season. At his Monday presser, Biff was asked what changed after the Oklahoma game that convinced Sharon and staff to turn Bryce loose.
I don't think anything changed. I think, look, you start learning about your team. It takes a while to learn about your team when you transition from spring ball to summer to camp. You really start learning the most when the games play. And I think what we're learning is what I said over here. Coaches don't win games. Plays don't win games. Players win games. And you have to let your players play. So we're letting them play, all of them.
Biff also shared his thoughts on Dylan Raiola.
Man, he's a really good player, isn't he? He's been one for a long time, too. Thought he had a great high school career, obviously, was highly rated. I thought he played really well his first year at Nebraska. I think he's very polished and very dangerous.
He was asked if having a road game under his belt in a tough environment would help Bryce this week in Lincoln.
I don't know if there's a harder place to play than Nebraska. Fans are very loud. The stadium is loud, very raucous. They'll obviously be very excited. And what Bryce has to learn, and I think Bryce learned this, just be Bryce. You're not playing against the stadium. They got 11, we got 11. Everything else is just noise.
My guest today says Nebraska has looked pretty good in their first 3 games, but they know Michigan is a different kind of challenge and a barometer game for their program as well. Joining us next is the radio play-by-play voice of Huskers football, Kyle Crooks. So stay with us. Joining us today as we get ready for that big trip to Lincoln on Saturday is Nebraska Cornhuskers radio play-by-play voice, Kyle Crooks. Kyle, great to have you on the show with us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's a big game, to say the least, so I'm really excited for it.
Big game for both teams and for Nebraska. Been a great start to the season so far. Put up a lot of points in the first 2 home games. But getting win number 3 on the road at Cincinnati, that was a test, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a pseudo road game. It was in Kansas City, so I would say it's probably about 98% Husker fans in that building. But that was a tough game. I think going into it, a lot of people were down on just Cincinnati as a program, and that was the biggest test so far through the first 3. And there's no doubt about that. But I think Cincinnati's a much better team when it's all said and done to what maybe we thought going into that game. They have a veteran quarterback, a couple of NFL players, one at tight end, one at nose tackle. So it was a hard test. But, I think the biggest thing that you take away from that game is Nebraska made plays in crunch time, which, necessarily has not been the case in the first 2 years under Coach Ruhle or the previous 10 years. 1-score games, the record has not been great. Right now, Nebraska sits at, that was their 4th win under Matt Ruhle in a 1-score game. They're 4-8 in the 12 1-score games they've had under his tenure. So they've had a lot of bone-crushing losses, and it came down in that 4th quarter to the possibility of having another one of those situations arise where you either make a play or you don't, and you find yourselves, if you're a Husker fan, leaving the stadium disappointed. But they're able to find a way to pick up a win against what I think is a really good team, and they've done what they're supposed to do the last 2 weeks on paper here at home and against Akron and Houston Christian. So they've checked a lot of things off the list. But as Matt Ruhle said today, and I'm sure the rest of the program would echo, it really gets tough this week with the top 25 Michigan team. We'll really see where this Nebraska program's at.
Well, Kyle, Michigan fans are looking forward to seeing Dylan Raiola. I mean, he is a foundational type of a quarterback. Any team would want him. I mean, even Michigan was recruiting him. Everyone was. I watched a lot of him last year as much as I could and was very impressed for a true freshman. He's off to a very good start, and talk about him and how he just raises the level of that Huskers offense.
Yeah, he's gotten so much better from year 1 to year 2, which you thought would be the case. He's a rare commodity nowadays in college football, and the fact that he started 13 games as a true freshman. You just don't get the opportunity to see that many snaps, that many starts as a true freshman, and that was the case. He came in, like you said, he was a high-level 5-star recruit that originally committed to Ohio State and Georgia. He went to Buford High School. He grew up in Buford, Georgia. So he had the opportunity to go to a program that has had recent winning tradition and have an easier path to a possible college football playoff and a national championship. But his dad was a legacy here, was an incredible player in the NFL. His dad, Dominic Raiola, was a center for the Lions for many years. And he decided to keep up that tradition and build Nebraska back up to a champion, and he's off to a really good start this year. He's almost completed it, nearly, at least going into this past game, about 80% of his passes, about, high 70s in terms of completion percentage, 8 touchdowns, no interceptions. Last year he had 11 picks. That was tied for the most in the Big Ten, but the game slowed down a lot. I think the biggest difference probably is Dana Holgorsen, as his first full year as the offense coordinator, and the way he's simplified and he's emphasized making this simple play and then eventually turning that into explosive plays. So you're seeing the numbers, the efficiency for Dylan Raiola skyrocket. He's an incredibly high IQ player, and what he sees now at the line of scrimmage pre-snap and his ability to check into different play calls. There's a lot of liberty that he gets within this offense, and then there's a lot more playmakers around him. And I think he has one of the best running backs in the Big Ten, and Emmett Johnson, who, if he didn't sit out the entire second half last week, would have 3 consecutive 100-yard rushing games to start the year. And then you see what they have on the outside. It's much improved, especially in the tight end room. So there's a lot of things around Dylan that have improved, but a lot of credit goes to him for everything he's done in the offseason to become a much, much better player.
Well, as good as Raiola is, when we old-timers think of Nebraska football, it's a pounding running game that comes to mind. And I know Matt Ruhle likes balance, seeks balance. You were mentioning Emmett Johnson. Biff Poggi at Michigan's presser today talked about what a good-looking running back he was and the yardage he gets after contact. So the running game, is Coach pretty pleased with it after 3 weeks?
Yeah, I'd say so. it's hard not to be. I think the biggest question mark would be what you have behind Emmett on a consistent basis. Mekhi Nelson, who's one of those backup running backs who was the number 2 coming out of fall camp, didn't play this past week. That was a coach's decision, so probably we'll get him back into the rotation this week. Isaiah Mosey has not seen a whole lot of carries. He's a wide receiver turned running back. He shifted to the running back room before fall camp, so you have 2 really young guys behind Emmett, a redshirt freshman and a freshman. I think the one guy who really popped this past week, Quentin Ives, who had gotten hurt in fall camp, the first drill of the first practice of fall camp, he was the number 2 running back going into fall practice and kind of strained his hamstring. So he had been out and missed a lot of practice time, but he had a career performance this past week. So there's a good chance you could see 28 Quentin Ives a little bit more. But Emmett Johnson, you're right. I mean, the ability of what he's able to do after contact, and he's become a much different player also with Dana Holgerson as the offensive coordinator. He's had 3 career 100-yard games, and all of them have been since Dana took over the play calling late last year. Really, really just hard-nosed running back. And I think the difference with him and what you might see in some running backs, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield is next level. He had 39 catches last year. That was the most for a Husker running back in nearly 18 years. So he's just versatile in what he can do. He's a hard-nosed runner. He's athletic. Everything that you need in a Big Ten back, he is. So he's really, really exciting guy, and it's been fun to watch him go to work these last 3 games.
Well, Kyle, over on the defensive side, the Huskers lost a lot of talent up front in the trenches. Cincinnati, I saw, ran for just over 200 yards against them on Saturday. Are there still some worries about that D-line after 3 weeks?
I think there might be a little bit. The biggest area of concern for me is, okay, how does that front 3, now they are very much amoeba-like in their fronts. They could run a 3-down lineman, 4-down lineman. They can run a bear defense. So there's different looks that they provide depending on who the opponent might be. In Michigan, a team who, they can run it between the tackles and, of course, have that unique ability with a star running quarterback in Bryce Underwood. He presents that aspect to things as well. But I think in the Big Ten, you could look at this defensive line as a little bit undersized when you start going up against guys that are 325 on the opposing offensive line. It's not like you're not going up against Houston Christian or Akron anymore, or even Cincinnati for that matter. So they're going to need guys like Cam Lenhart, Elijah Judy, Keona Davis. I think Riley Van Poppel is a name you might hear a lot. Williams Nwaneri is he's a star young player. He's 6'7", 265. He had a scoop and score touchdown this past week. He's a freak athlete. He's one of those guys you would definitely see in the SEC, just the way he's built. He's almost got an NFL body as it is. So the good thing about these last 2 games, they've been able to get a lot of their depth in there and get a lot more reps for some of the guys that might have an opportunity to play against Michigan. I think while you might look at the defensive line is somewhat of a weakness in certain sense in terms of their size and the ability to stop the run. I think their secondary and what they can do back there, and one as run fit, but as the ability to cover man-to-man and make plays in the secondary, I think they make up for whatever they may lack in that front 7 or so for what they can do in the back end.
Well, Kyle, Matt Ruhle is trying to build this program back to that high competitive level and then be up there with the big boys in the Big Ten once again. I mean, you have a generational type talented quarterback, and that helps. But we all know how fans are. Patience can start wearing thin 3 or 4 years into a program if they don't see what they think is progress. Right now, is the vibe there in Lincoln that Huskers fans are feeling pretty good about what Coach Ruhle is doing?
Oh, yeah. I would say so, for sure. I mean, they took a big jump last year. They're able to get to their first bowl game in about 8 years, win their first bowl game in the last 9 years. So they made that necessary next step to say, okay, there is tangible evidence to what we're doing actually works. And what you heard a lot in the offseason was that year 3 jump that Matt Ruhle had when he was the head coach at Temple and the head coach at Baylor, when they went from a program that was sort of in the doldrums and then made that leap up to a double-digit winning program. And Nebraska's schedule certainly helps. They're not really playing the upper echelon for the most part. I mean, they do play Penn State State. They'll play USC, but they dodge the Ohio States, the Oregons, the Indianas, Illinois. So there's a chance with the way their schedule sits right now where they can make a big jump this year in the Big Ten. But I think we'll know more in terms of the answer to your question. This game, this Saturday at Memorial Stadium is such a pivot point in this season. If you have a bye week coming up. So if you enter at 4-0, a top 25 win for the first in about 9 years since 2016. This would be a massive, massive victory for that next step for this program. It certainly doesn't write the whole story for what this season might be, but if you beat Michigan on your home field where it's about a 1.5 point spread, so essentially it's about a toss-up when you look at these two teams with a freshman quarterback coming in that's going to have to play in a really tough environment. This is a game that I think if you're a fan, you're going to look at and say, okay, you win this game. I could truly believe that this program is taking a massive step.
One thing is certain, and everyone in the Big Ten agrees, I know everyone in Michigan does, playing in Lincoln is always a challenge. It is one great fan base, and they keep it loud. It's just a great game day atmosphere in total there, isn't it, Kyle?
Yeah, and I'm experiencing it for the first time the last 2 weeks, and it's next level. Akron, it was the first night game that I got to experience, and this will be a unique circumstance because the eyes of the nation are on this game. It's a 2:30 Central kickoff on CBS, so it's one of the big games of the week, and I'm excited for what this stadium in terms of noise will bring. I would probably compare it to, from what I've been told, what we saw with Nebraska and when they beat Colorado, when the Buffaloes came here, and I believe that was a week 2 game last year. So that was an up for grabs environment. I would presume that it's going to be very similar, understanding what's at stake here with Michigan.
Well, final question before we let you get away, Kyle. Saturday, we kick it off at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central, and as you have mentioned a couple of times, it's a big game for both schools, a barometer game for both programs this year. When I think of Nebraska, you read that Coach Ruhle hasn't had that signature win yet. Came darn close in Columbus last year against Ohio State. So once again, this would easily be the signature win, and who knows how that could jump the program.
Yeah, I think the only one that would equate would be that Colorado win, but also that's not a Big Ten opponent. No, Colorado is one of your old school foes, but in this case, to beat a blue blood program in Michigan that's not too far removed from a national championship, that these games against ranked opponents, especially on your home field, you have to find a way. If you're going to be a college football playoff team yourself, if you're going to have the opportunity to be in that conversation in November to win a Big Ten title, or at least have a chance to play in the Big Ten championship game, these are the games that you have to win. And they're in a really good spot. Matt Ruhle's in a really good spot with how he's built this program. He's by far has his best, most mature roster that he's had in his 3 seasons here, and they're very talented. Look, they have the quarterback, they have the coach, they have the skill position players. Their defense is pretty solid with, you could, when you look at it with some of the issues you mentioned and what they lost on the defensive line, that certainly could be something you bring up. But defensively, I think they've been very, very solid, and they've lived up to the standard of what they've been, and that's a top 20 defense the previous 2 years under Coach Ruhle. So everything's here to take that next step. This moment in time, I think everybody knows it, and they're not going to run from it. That you got to beat Michigan. It's the big bad bully that's standing in front of you in terms of taking that next step, and especially with the home crowd behind you, you got to get it done.
Absolutely, huge opportunity for Nebraska football. Should be a lot of fun to watch. With us today to talk about the Huskers is Nebraska radio play-by-play voice Kyle Crooks. Kyle, enjoy the game on Saturday. I think it's going to be a humdinger and a great atmosphere. And we thank you for carving out time for us, and we look forward to another visit next year.
Look forward to it. Appreciate you having me.
On Quick Hits today, Biff says Rod Moore will see his first action on Saturday. He added that Gio El-Hadi will be out another couple of weeks, but Brady Norton should be back against the Huskers. On Thursday's Michigan Game Day show, we'll be joined by Clayton Safey from the Wolverine on 3 to preview Saturday's game. We'll also have any injury updates or team news that is released, some game day notes of interest, and a look at the weather in Lincoln for Saturday's 3:30 p.m. kickoff. A reminder to follow us on X and leave your comments or reviews wherever you get your podcasts from. That does it for now. Make sure you tell your Wolverine family and friends about the show, and join us again on Thursday. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until we meet again on Thursday, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!